Greetings everybody, this is your favourite Cthulhu cheerleader, B Harper from supermarcy.com, and welcome back to another book review. The tale of Ezio Auditore has reached an end, and we say goodbye to the man from Firenze. And now we say hello to Haytham Kenway. Okay, so unlike the other book reviews I have done on this series, there is going to be some very, very slight spoiler material, but nothing that will necessarily give anything away about this book. And trust me, this book is perhaps my favourite of Oliver Bowden's adaptations. So without further ado, I'm going to read the back blurb, and then we're going to continue. It's going to be fun. 1735, London. Haytham Kenway has been taught to use a sword from the age he was able to hold one. When his family's house is attacked, his father murdered, and his sister taken by armed men, Haytham defends his home the only way he can. He kills. With no family, he is taken in by a mysterious tutor who trains him to become a deadly killer. Consumed by his thirst for revenge, Haytham begins a quest for retribution, trusting no one and questioning everything he has ever come to know. Conspiracy and betrayal surround him as he is drawn into the centuries-old battle between the assassins and the Templars. I don't feel I have fallen so hard and so fast for a video game character. And then Haytham Kenway happens. There is just something so wonderful about Haytham. He's handsome, he's dashing, he's debonair, he's smooth, he's a badass, he's confident. He has it all. He's just one of those characters that as soon as you see him, as soon as you hear him speak, you are so automatically intrigued about who this man is. But I feel, because of, and perhaps, you know, is despite all these things, what really draws me into the character of Haytham Kenway is the fact that he is a bad guy. Assassin's Creed Forsaken is the novelization of Assassin's Creed 3. Now, Assassin's Creed 3 more or less centers around the character of his son, Connor Kenway. And Connor is a he is a hybrid of British blood and Native American blood. Okay, he's a half-breed. That's essentially what I'm trying to say. So, in saying that, the game is very, very different from, you know, say, Assassin's Creed 1 to, you know, Assassin's Creed Revelations, because Connor is a very different character compared to Altair and Ezio. But for the first couple of stages of Assassin's Creed 3, you actually play as Haytham. And for the most part, you're thinking that he is an assassin, but it turns out he is a Templar. Haytham Kenway is the first Templar lead character that anybody ever got to play. And just about everybody fell in love with him. Even when we find out that he is the enemy that we, that being the assassins, have been fighting against all this time, you're just so drawn in by him. It's just a really compelling character. And Assassin's Creed Forsaken is absolutely no exception, because rather than trying to adapt the game itself from Connor's perspective, Bowden is essentially chronicling the life story of Haytham, from when he is a child to when Connor meets him to his final moments. This is perhaps, you know, my favourite of Bowden's adaptations, as I said before, simply because it is from a completely different type of perspective. This is the first person Assassin's Creed novelization ever written by Bowden, and perhaps it still remains his finest. So, just to give you an idea about Haytham Kenway and where he came from, Haytham is the son of an assassin, Edward Kenway, who used to be a pirate, and I'll get along to that later. In his youth, Haytham was starting to become, you know, groomed by Edward to be another assassin. But when Edward is murdered and Haytham is taken in, it turns out that his tutor is a Templar. So this tutor, Reginald Birch, has been teaching Haytham the ways of the Templar Order. However, Haytham is not one to blindly follow anybody's ideology. He likes to think, he likes to question. That is his assassin instincts kicking in. And all throughout the story, you see this conflict within Haytham. He's too far gone to, defect to the assassins, and he's become a high-ranking Templar by the end of the story. And he's really got to that point when there really is no turning back. He is so stuck in his convictions, and this is the way it's got to be. So when he meets the character of Connor, all grown up and everything, Connor is a direct conflicting force to Haytham. But surprisingly, Haytham doesn't automatically target Connor as an enemy. What's really fascinating in this book is that it really does divulge into the way Haytham thinks and perceives things. When he's a child, of course he's not necessarily aware of, who his father is and what his father does. But as time goes on and he starts to understand more about the world and the people who live within it, and for that matter, the people he talks to and interacts with, he realizes there's just so much more going on. Even though he is this well-groomed and very respectable pillar of society, Haytham doesn't follow that sort of convention. He questions everything that he comes across, and it's not until he's very advanced in his age that he becomes completely devoted to the Templar cause. But you really get a feeling that it was either do or die for Haytham. Haytham is a ride or die motherfucker, and he's just... There's something so magnetic about him, and the way Bowden is able to completely invest you in this character. When you become privy to the way Haytham thinks and what he does, and he goes through a substantial change in this book. You see in the game, when we first meet him and when we're first playing him, he's very sort of dashing and, dear boy, that sort of stuff. He's very British, he's very proper, he's... so fucking dreamy, but that's beside the point. But later on in the game, when you meet him again as Connor Kenway, he is very different. He's a cold, hard killer who will not hesitate to use violence. And you're kind of stuck wondering as to what happened. Well, Assassin's Creed Forsaken answers these questions. And by God, even though Ubisoft have said that they are done with the Kenway saga, I want to see Haytham's exploits made into a game. There's so much drama and power in this story. In every page, it just grabs you because, once again, this is from Haytham's perspective. This is not a third-person story. Which makes it doubly interesting that you are looking at the world from the perspective of somebody who's supposedly the villain. And Haytham is never so straightforward as that. He has some pretty legitimate ideas, and the things he says, especially about the individuals who sparked the American Revolution. He is not a fan of George Washington, and he is able to, say what he thinks about it because he feels that these people are wasting their time on something so unnecessary, something that is just a total loss of life. He says to Connor, that the Templars do not fight for the British crown. They seek justice and independence, but they don't seek freedom, because freedom is a means of chaos. And that's what he tries to say to Connor, but Connor is so, hard on the fact that, humanity is, requires freedom in order to fully function. And when you think about it, the Templar way actually applies to us more than the Assassin way. And even though the Assassins and the Templars really do want the same thing, they have completely different ways of doing it. In both cases, they can be incredibly ruthless and destructive, but it really is a means to a greater end. So in saying that, Assassin's Creed Forsaken truly does remain a standout in Oliver Bowden's novelizations, and I really don't think that it has been topped ever since. Assassin's Creed Renaissance and The Secret Crusade, those are really, really good books, but they don't give you a first-person perspective about what's going on. And yeah, it all comes back down to the fact that Haytham is not as straightforward as how we have thought the Templars to be. He is the first Templar we really get an insight into, And truth be told, I have found myself agreeing with how he thinks. And that is what Forsaken does. It seduces you into this means of thought, and it really makes you think about, you know, the legitimacy of what Haytham stands for. Yes, he's stubborn, and yes, he could be incredibly cruel and cold-blooded, but not without a reason. Haytham is a well-rounded character, and he just really is the star of this book. Well, obviously, because it's, you know, done through his eyes, but the fact of the matter is, his tale is a very exciting one, and it's one that evolves him as a character. He doesn't exactly end up in the most ideal of places, but you can conceive as to why he would be like this. It's just a really, really great book, and there is lots of really awesome moments that Haytham takes part in, and I would be loath if I ruined it for you, but let's just say there is one scene involving a church that has Haytham Kenway being badassness distilled. So fucking awesome. And I just totally had an orgasm. Okay guys, so I would give Assassin's Creed Forsaken a 5 out of 5. Brilliant, brilliant book. Still has not been topped, and I really don't think it will be. Unless another certain story is told from the perspective of another certain Templar agent. But that is a story for another time. So once again, guys, thank you so much for listening to me ramble, and as usual, I shall see you in the next video. Bye-bye for now.